I'm telling you this story because I need someone to know the truth. My name is Rosalind Hartwell, and 3 weeks ago, my own children dumped me at Sunset Manor like yesterday's garbage. The smell hit me first, that mix of disinfectant and despair that every cheap nursing home has. My daughter Sandra barely looked at me as she signed the papers. "It's for the best, Mom," she said, not meeting my eyes. My son Derek just stood there, checking his phone. "We can't take care of you anymore," Sandra continued. "Your memory issues, the falls. This place will be good for you." Memory issues. Fools. All lies they told themselves to feel better about what they were really doing, getting rid of the burden I'd become. The room they showed me was tiny. A narrow bed, a plastic chair, and a view of the parking lot. Sandra gave me a quick hug that felt like an obligation. Derek mumbled something about visiting soon. Then they were gone, and I was alone with my secret. You see, 2 days before, they brought me here. I'd won the lottery. $68 million. I hadn't told them yet because I wanted to surprise them at Christmas. I wanted to see their faces light up when I handed them the keys to new houses, paid off their mortgages, sent the grandkids to college. Now, sitting on that hard mattress, I realized something. Maybe I wouldn't tell them at all. My new roommate was a woman named Estelle who barely spoke, the nurse who showed me. Around, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, was named Jenny. She was the only one who seemed to actually see me as a person. "This must be hard," she whispered, as we walked past the common room where residents sat, staring at a blaring TV. "But we'll take good care of you here." I wanted to laugh. If only she knew that the poor old woman she was comforting could buy this entire place with pocket change. That night, I lay awake listening to Estelle's labored breathing and made a decision. I was going to play a little game. I was going to see just how far my children's greed would go before I revealed the truth. But first, I had a lottery ticket to claim and a plan to make. Getting out of Sunset Manor wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. I told Jenny I needed to visit my bank to arrange my monthly payments. She was so sweet. She even called me a taxi. The lottery office was downtown in a gleaming building that made me feel small in my old cardigan and worn shoes. But when I handed over that crumpled ticket, everything changed. "Mrs. Hartwell," the bank official said, his eyes wide. "You understand this is $68 million? I understood perfectly. I also understood that I wanted to remain anonymous, which, thankfully, our state allowed. No press conferences, no photographers, just me and my secret fortune. I chose the lump sum, $41 million after taxes, still more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. The banker who helped me set up accounts treated me like royalty. Once he saw the numbers. Funny how money changes the way people look at you. But I went back to Sunset Manor in the same taxi, wearing the same old clothes, carrying the same worn purse. To everyone there, I was still just another abandoned old woman. That evening, Sandra called. "How are you settling in, Mom?" Her voice had that fake brightness people use when they're trying to convince themselves they've done the right thing. "Oh, it's wonderful," I said, looking around my depressing little room. "The food is interesting. My roommate doesn't talk much, but I'm managing." "That's good, Mom. Derek and I were thinking, well, we've been looking at your finances, and we think you should sell the house. You don't need it anymore, and the money could help pay for your care." My house, the one I'd lived in for 43 years, where I'd raised them, nursed their father through his final illness, created every happy memory they claimed to cherish. "I suppose you're right," I said quietly. "Great. I'll call the realtor tomorrow. We found someone who can get a quick sale. It might not be full value, but whatever you think is best, dear." After I hung up, I sat in the dark and cried. Not from sadness, but from a deep, cold anger I'd never felt before. They couldn't wait 1 week before trying to sell my home out from under me. Jenny knocked softly on my door. Mrs. Hartwell? Are you all right? I thought I heard. I wiped my eyes. Just missing home. She came in and sat on my head. It gets easier. And you know what? I have a feeling you're stronger than you look. If only she knew how right she was. The next morning, I called my new private banker. I want to buy something, I said. A nursing home called Sunset Manor. Within a week, I owned Sunset Manor. Not directly, of course. I bought it through a company my lawyers set up. The previous owners were so eager to sell this barely profitable place that they didn't ask many questions. I was now the secret owner of my own prison. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat in the administrator's office, listening to her explain the new ownership situation to us residents. Margaret Finch was a thin woman who seemed to view the elderly residents as inconveniences rather than people. There will be some changes, she announced. The new owners want to improve conditions here. I almost smiled. They certainly did. My first change was Jenny. I had my lawyers arrange for her to receive a merit bonus that doubled her salary. When she found out, she cried right there in the hallway. I don't understand, she said. I just do my job. Sometimes doing your job with kindness is worth more than people realize, I told her. My second change was the food. Suddenly our meals improved dramatically. Real vegetables instead of canned mush. Fresh bread, meat that wasn't gray, and mysterious. Something's different about this place, Estelle said one morning, speaking more words than I'd heard from her all week. Meanwhile, Sandra was busy selling my house. She called every few days with updates, each conversation more infuriating than the last. The realtor thinks we should take the first offer, she said. It's $20,000 under asking. But Mom, you're never coming home anyway. Never coming. Home. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Derek thinks we should clear out your stuff too. Donate most of it. Keep a few sentimental pieces. Sentimental pieces. My wedding china. My grandmother's jewelry. My husband's books. My entire life reduced to a few sentimental pieces. Do whatever you think is best, I said. After she hung up, I called my banker again. I want to buy another property, I said. I bought my own house. For cash. $50,000 over asking price. The realtor called Sandra with the good news about a cash buyer willing to pay premium. Sandra was thrilled. She had no idea she'd just sold our family home to her own mother. But my children's greed was just getting started. Derek called the next week with a new idea. Mom, we've been thinking. Your Social Security check is just sitting in your account. You don't really need spending money in there, right? Maybe we could manage it for you. Help with the grandkids' expenses. My Social Security, the money I'd earned working 40 years as a secretary, raising 2 children alone after their father died young. Money I'd never needed less, now that I had millions, but money that represented something precious, my independence, my dignity. I suppose that makes sense, I said. Great, I'll set up the transfer. That night, I made another call to my banker. I want to establish a trust fund, I said, for my grandchildren's education, but with conditions. The conditions were simple. The money would only be available if their parents demonstrated genuine care and respect for their grandmother. My banker understood perfectly. I also made another purchase that week. Derek's house. He'd been bragging about getting pre-approved for a bigger mortgage. What he didn't know was that I'd bought his current house from the bank. He was now, unknowingly, paying rent to his own mother. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because the next week, something happened that changed everything. It started with a cough. Just a little tickle that wouldn't go away. Then came the fever, the aches, the exhaustion that felt different from normal tiredness. Jenny was the first to notice I wasn't well. Mrs. Hartwell, you look pale, she said, pressing her cool hand to my forehead. I think we should call the doctor. The diagnosis came back quickly. Pneumonia. Not unusual for someone my age, but serious. Enough. That I needed to be hospitalized. From my hospital bed, I called Sandra. Pneumonia? Her voice had a strange tone. Not worry exactly. Something else. How serious is it? The doctors say it could go either way, I told her honestly. At my age? Oh, well, I'm sure you'll be fine, Mom. You're tough. She didn't offer to visit. Neither did Derek when I called him. Hospitals are so depressing, he said, and with my work schedule. But we're thinking of you. Thinking of me. From a distance. Like always. But Jenny visited every day after her shift ended. She brought me magazines, decent coffee, and most importantly, her presence. Your children. She started one day, then stopped. It's okay, I said. You can say it. They should be here. Yes, I agreed. They should be. That's when she told me something that broke my heart in a whole new way. Mrs. Hartwell, I overheard Mrs. Finch on the phone yesterday. She was talking to someone about your account, about what happens if... She couldn't finish the sentence. If I die? Jenny nodded miserably. She seemed very interested in who would be responsible for your final expenses. Margaret Finch was already planning my funeral, probably calculating how to squeeze money out of my estate. But what Jenny told me next was worse. She also mentioned that your daughter had called, asking about your room, whether it would need to be cleared out quickly if, you know. Sandra had called about clearing out my room, before I was even dead. That night, alone in my hospital bed, I made a decision. I called my lawyers and made some changes to my plans. Big changes. Because I realized something lying there in the dark. My children weren't just neglecting me, now. They were already dividing up what little they thought I had left. I was going to survive this pneumonia. I was going to get better. And then I was going to show them exactly what they'd thrown away. But first, I had one more test for them. The next morning, I called Sandra and Derek both. I told them the doctors were worried. I told them I might not make it through the week. I told them I loved them and hoped they could find time to say goodbye. Sandra said she'd try to visit on the weekend if she could rearrange some plans. Derek said he'd think about it, but reminded me that he had a big presentation at work. Neither of them came. By the weekend, I was feeling much better. The antibiotics had worked, and I was ready to go back to Sunset Manor. But I'd learned everything I needed to know. Jenny picked me up from the hospital in her own car. I'm so glad you're... Okay, she said, tears in her eyes. I was so scared we were going to lose you. This woman, who'd known me for less than a month, cared more about my life than my own children. Jenny, I said, as we drove back to the nursing home, what would you say if I told you I had a secret? A big one? She glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I'd say everyone deserves to have secrets, Mrs. Hartwell, especially at our age. Our age. She was 43. I was 78. But somehow, we'd become friends across that impossible gap. What if it was the kind of secret that could change everything? Then I'd say you should use it wisely. That's exactly what I planned to do. 2 months had passed since my children dumped me at Sunset Manor. 2 months of watching them systematically dismantle my life while I secretly owned everything around them. They'd sold my house, to me, transferred my Social Security, while I paid it back to myself from my lottery winnings, and Derek had even started the paperwork to become my power of attorney, in case Mom gets worse. The final straw came on a Tuesday morning in December. Sandra called with her voice full of fake concern. Mom, we need to talk about Christmas. Oh, are you planning to visit? Well, that's the thing. The kids are so busy with school activities and Derek's family is going to his in-laws. We thought maybe this year you could just celebrate there at the home. They probably do something nice for the residents. No Christmas with my family. No grandchildren opening presents from grandma. Just me, alone, in a nursing home while they celebrated without the burden of my presence. Of course, dear, I understand. I knew you would. You're so reasonable about everything. Oh, and Mom, Derek and I have been talking. We think it might be time to discuss your final arrangements. You know, pre-planning. It would be such a relief to have everything sorted out. My funeral. They wanted to plan my funeral while I was still alive. That sounds practical, I said. After I hung up, I sat in my little room and made the call I'd been building up to for months. Jenny, I said when she appeared. At my door. Could you help me with something special? Of course, Mrs. Hartwell. Anything. I need to make some phone calls, important ones, and then I need you to help me get ready for visitors. I have a feeling my children are going to want to see me very soon. First, I called my lawyer. It's time, I said simply. Then I called Sandra and Derek. I told them I needed to see them urgently. I told them it was about my estate, about final arrangements, about things they needed to know before it was too late. They both promised to come that very afternoon. Jenny helped me put on my best dress, the navy blue one with the pearl buttons that I'd worn to their father's funeral. She even helped me fix my hair and put on a little lipstick. You look beautiful, Mrs. Hartwell, she said. What's this all about? You'll see. They arrived within minutes of each other, probably coordinating their visit to get it over with. As quickly as possible. Sandra came in first, her eyes already scanning my tiny room like she was taking inventory. Hi, Mom. You sounded so urgent on the phone. Are you feeling all right? Derek followed, checking his watch before he even said hello. I'm fine, I said, gesturing for them to sit in the 2 plastic chairs Jenny had brought in. Better than fine, actually. I have some news. News? Sandra leaned forward. About your arrangements? In a way. I took a deep breath. 3 months ago, I won the lottery. The silence that followed was complete. Even the usual nursing home sounds from the hallway seemed to fade away. What? Derek's voice cracked. $68 million. I won it 2 days before you brought me here. Sandra's face went through a series of expressions, confusion, disbelief, then something that looked almost like panic. Mom, that's wonderful. Why didn't you tell us? I was planning to surprise you at Christmas. I thought it would be nice to pay off your mortgages, send the grandkids to college, maybe take a family vacation together. Derek had gone completely white. 68 million? Well, 41 after taxes. Still quite a lot, don't you think? Sandra was already doing calculations in her head. I could practically see the dollar signs in her eyes. Mom, this is incredible. We need to help you manage this money. At your age, with your condition, you'll need financial advisors, legal help. Oh, I've already taken care of all that. Derek leaned forward. What do you mean? Well, I've made some investments, bought some property, set up some trusts. I paused, enjoying the suspense. Would you like to know what I bought? They nodded eagerly. First, I bought this place, Sunset Manor. I'm your landlord now, Derek. I also bought your house, Sandra. The bank was so happy to sell it to me. The color drained from both their faces. You bought our houses? I also bought my old house back, the one you sold. Paid quite a premium for it, too. I smiled, sweetly. I've been your mysterious cash buyer all along. Sandra stood up abruptly. Mom, you can't be serious. This is what, dear? Crazy. Like putting your mother in a nursing home so you could sell her house. We thought it was best for you. Did you? Or was it best for you? I looked at both of them, these strangers who shared my blood. Do you know what I've learned these past few months? They stared at me, speechless. I learned that Jenny, a woman I've known for 3 months, cares more about my well-being than either of you. She visited me in the hospital when you couldn't be bothered. She brings me coffee and magazines and actually listens when I talk. Mom, we can explain. I learned that you started planning my funeral before I was even sick. I learned that you wanted to take my Social Security money for your own expenses. I learned that you saw me as nothing, more than a burden to be disposed of and an estate to be managed. Derek tried to speak. We love you, Mom. We were just trying to... Love? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You haven't visited me once in 2 months. You didn't come when I was dying in the hospital. You sold my house before the sheets were cold. I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in years. So here's what's going to happen. You're both going to leave now. You're going to think very carefully about how you've treated me. And then you're going to decide what kind of people you want to be. What about the money? Sandra asked, her voice barely a whisper. What about it? Are you going to give us anything? I looked at my daughter. This woman who just asked me if I was going to give her my lottery winnings after she'd abandoned me. And I felt something inside me finally break free. I'm going to give you exactly what you gave me, I said quietly. Nothing. The silence after I spoke those words was deafening. Sandra and Derek sat frozen in their plastic chairs, staring at me like I'd suddenly grown a second head. Nothing, Derek whispered. Nothing, I repeated firmly. You taught me. That family means nothing. You showed me that love means nothing. You demonstrated that respect means nothing. So that's exactly what you'll get from me. Sandra stood up, her face flushed with anger and desperation. Mom, you can't mean that. We're your children. Are you? Because children visit their parents. Children care when their mother is sick. Children don't sell their mother's house before she's even settled into her new home. We made mistakes, Derek said, finally finding his voice. But we can fix this. We can do better. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not my little boy who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms, but a middle-aged man who viewed his elderly mother as an inconvenience. Can you? Can you undo the fact that you didn't visit me once in 2 months? Can you undo leaving me alone in the hospital when I might have died? Can you undo treating me like I was already dead? People make mistakes, Mom, Sandra said, tears starting to flow. We thought we were doing the right thing. No, you thought you were doing the easy thing. There's a difference. I walked to my small window that looked out over the parking lot where they'd abandoned me all those weeks ago. Do you know what I've been doing with my money besides buying your houses? They shook their heads. I gave Jenny a scholarship to finish her nursing degree. She's been taking night classes while working here, trying to better herself, trying to give her own children a better life. A stranger cared more about my well-being than my own family, so I'm helping her achieve her dreams. I turned back to face them. I've also been renovating this place. New kitchen equipment so the residents get better food. New mattresses so people like your mother can sleep comfortably. A library with large print books. A garden where we can sit outside and remember what it feels like to be human. Derek was crying now too. Mom, please, we're sorry. We're so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't undo abandonment. Sandra stepped forward. What can we do? How can we make this right? I considered her question carefully. These were my children, after all. The babies I'd nursed, the toddlers I'd chased, the teenagers I'd worried about, the adults I'd been proud of. Somewhere, along the way, they'd forgotten that I was still a person. You want to know what you can do? They nodded eagerly. You can prove that you remember I'm your mother, not just a problem to be solved or an inheritance to be managed. How? Visit me. Not because you want something, but because you love me. Call me because you want to hear my voice, not because you need me to sign papers. Include me in your lives because I matter to you, not because it's an obligation. I sat back down on my bed. If you can do that, consistently, genuinely, for the next year, then we'll talk about forgiveness. And maybe eventually, we'll talk about money. Derek wiped his eyes. A year? 52 weeks. 365 days. That's how long you need to prove that you remember, I'm not just your mother. I'm a person who deserves respect and love. Sandra looked desperate. And if we do this, if we prove ourselves, you'll forgive us. I might. But understand this. The money isn't the prize. Having a relationship with your mother should be the prize. If you're only doing this to get your hands on my lottery winnings, then you've already failed. They left that day promising to do better, to be better. I watched from my window as they walked to their cars, heads together, probably already planning their campaign to win back my favor. But something had changed in me during those months at Sunset Manor. I'd discovered that I was stronger than I'd ever known. I'd learned that I didn't need their approval or their presence to be happy. I'd found purpose in helping people like Jenny, in improving life for the other residents, in using my unexpected fortune to make the world a little bit better. Jenny knocked on my door that evening. Mrs. Hartwell, I heard you had visitors today. How did it go? I smiled at her. It went exactly as it needed to. She sat down in the chair Sandra had vacated hours earlier. You know, I have something to tell you too. Oh? I got accepted into the accelerated nursing program, full-time. I'll be able to finish my degree in 18 months instead of 4 years. Jenny, that's wonderful. It's because of the scholarship, the anonymous scholarship that paid for everything, tuition, books, even living expenses so I don't have to work while I study. She looked at me suspiciously. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? I tried to look innocent. Why would you think that? Because miracles like that don't just happen to people like me. Someone made it happen. I took her hand. Jenny, you've been taking care of everyone else your whole life. Don't you think it's time someone took care of you? She squeezed my fingers. Mrs. Hartwell, are you rich? I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in months. Jenny, I'm the richest woman you've ever met. Not just because of money, but because I finally understand what wealth really means. What does it mean? It means having people in your life who see you as a person, not a problem. It means using whatever resources you have to make life better for others. It means not letting other people's limitations limit your own happiness. Over the following weeks, Sandra and Derek both tried to follow through on their promises. Sandra visited twice. Derek called once. Both interactions felt forced, artificial, like they were checking items off a list. But I didn't mind. I was busy with my new life. I continued improving Sunset Manor, turning it from a warehouse for the elderly into a real community. I funded activities, hired better staff, upgraded everything from the furniture to the food. I also started a foundation to help adult children learn how to care for aging parents with dignity and respect. The irony wasn't lost on me. And every evening I sat in my room, the same tiny room my children had left me in, and felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. You can't force people to love you the way you deserve to be loved. But you can love yourself enough to demand better. And sometimes, demanding better means walking away from people who don't value what you bring to their lives, even if those people are your own children. 6 months had passed since I'd revealed my secret to Sandra and Derek. 6 months of sporadic visits, awkward phone calls, and obvious attempts to get back into my good graces. But something else had happened during those months. I'd fallen in love with my new life. Sunset Manor wasn't the same place they'd dumped me in. The renovations had transformed it into something beautiful. The dining room now had real wooden tables and fresh flowers. The common areas had comfortable furniture and big windows. The garden I'd had installed was blooming with roses and herbs that the residents could tend if they wanted to. More importantly, I'd found my purpose. Every morning, I woke up excited about the day ahead. There were people to help, projects to oversee, lives to touch. Jenny had started her full-time nursing program and was thriving. Mrs. Patterson in room 12 had reconnected with her estranged sister because I'd hired someone to help her write letters. Mr. Rodriguez had started painting again because I'd set up an art studio. I wasn't just existing anymore. I was living. That's why Derek's visit on a rainy Thursday afternoon caught me off guard. He came alone this time, without Sandra's nervous energy or obvious agenda. He sat in the visitor's chair I'd had brought in, a real armchair, not those awful plastic things, and just looked at me for a long moment. "Mom," he said finally, "I need to tell you something." "What's that, honey?" "I've been seeing a therapist." This surprised me. Derek had always been the type to solve problems with spreadsheets and 5-year plans, not feelings and conversations. About us. About how Sandra and I treated you. About how we became the kind of people who could abandon their mother. I set down the book I'd been reading. And what did you learn? I learned that we were selfish. Not just about the money, though God knows we were greedy enough, but about everything. We wanted you to be the mother we remembered from childhood. Patient, accommodating, always there when we needed something. We never saw you as a person with your own needs and feelings. He leaned forward, his hands clasped together. The therapist asked me when was the last time I called you, just to see how you were feeling. Not to ask for advice or tell you about my problems, but just to check on you. And I couldn't remember, Mom. I literally could not remember a single time. Tears were sliding down his face now. We treated you like you were already gone, like the person you used to be had died and left behind this burden we had to manage. And that's not true. You're still here. You're still funny and smart and interesting. You're still my mother. I felt my own eyes filling up. This was the first time in 6 months that either of my children had spoken to me like I was a real person instead of a problem to be solved. Derek, I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I know I haven't earned it. But I wanted you to know that I finally understand what we did to you. And I'm ashamed. We sat in silence for a few minutes, both of us crying quietly. There's something else, he said eventually. What? Sandra's marriage is falling apart. This was news to me. I'm sorry to hear that. She's been using the kids as an excuse not to visit you, but the truth is, she's embarrassed. She knows what we did was wrong, but she doesn't know how to face you. And you do? I'm learning. That's why I'm here. Derek stayed for 2 hours that day. We talked about his work, his children, his fears about getting older. We talked about his father and what I missed about being married. We talked about books and movies and whether the food at Sunset Manor was really as good as everyone said it was. For the first time in years, I felt like I was talking to my son, not a stranger who happened to share my DNA. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. Mom, the money. I don't want it. What? The lottery money. I don't want any of it. I need to know that I'm doing this, visiting you, trying to rebuild our relationship, because I love you, not because I want something from you. I stared at him. Derek, that's a lot of money to turn down. It's not mine. It never was. You earned it. You won it. It's yours to do with as you please. If rebuilding our relationship is conditional on whether I might inherit something someday, then it's not really a relationship at all. After he left, I sat in my room thinking about what he'd said, about the difference between earning forgiveness and buying it, about the difference between love and transaction. That evening, I called my lawyer. "I want to make some changes to my will," I said. "What kind of changes, Mrs. Hartwell?" "I want to leave everything to charity, the foundation I started, some medical research, college scholarships for kids who can't afford school." "Everything?" "Almost everything. I want to leave my children each a small amount, enough to know they were remembered, not enough to change their lives." "Are you sure about this?" I thought about Derek's visit, about the genuine remorse in his voice, about how he'd turned down money he didn't even know he was entitled to. "Actually, let me think about it a little longer. Because maybe, just maybe, one of my children was finally learning what really mattered. And maybe that was worth more than all the money in the world. That's my story. How I learned that sometimes the biggest lottery win isn't money, but discovering your own worth. Sometimes family has to earn the right to be in your life, even when they share your blood. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and tell me your city or country. And if this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to help us spread more stories of kindness and standing up for yourself. Speaking of standing up for yourself, you won't believe what happened when my daughter told me not to come to a wedding, but to watch through live stream instead. I knew exactly what to do. Click on that video appearing on your screen right now to hear that incredible story. Until next time, remember, you deserve to be treated with love and respect, no matter your age. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.